What if the deepest secrets of hell were unlocked by accident? Imagine a place where faith is twisted and shadows possess physical form. A house that doesn't just hold the dead, but demands ritualistic sacrifice. And tonight, two unsuspecting men are about to step right into the devil's trap. Their fate is sealed the moment they cross the threshold. Can they survive a nightmare engineered by the Antichrist himself? The chilling story we are about to explore centers on two friends, Miraj and Fendi, who find themselves imprisoned inside a house. This wasn't just any old abandoned building. It was the site of a very specific, dark ritual dedicated to the worship of Dajjal, the Antichrist. Within this terrifying structure lay a powerful, forbidden book. By simply opening this text and unwittingly uttering the four names forbidden by the Almighty Allah, they opened a gateway to another world. In that alternate, terrifying dimension, four devils immediately started hunting them. Our deep dive today, drawn from this newly surfaced Indonesian tale, will reveal precisely how these two friends attempt to escape this horrifying spiritual labyrinth. The story immediately began with a stark reminder. A verse from the Quran was displayed, explaining that the Almighty Allah does not tolerate anyone bowing down before anything other than Him, identifying this act as a dangerous form of shirk or idolatry. The very next moment, the scene shifted dramatically, plunging us into a mysterious house deep within a dark jungle. Underneath a bed, a bloody young girl was shown hiding, trembling uncontrollably and paralyzed with fear. Suddenly, something unseen violently yanked her out into the open. Standing over her was a truly menacing figure wearing a horrific mask. The sources note that this type of mask is typically worn by the followers of the devil, as the Jinn species that Satan originates from is said to somewhat resemble a goat. Without hesitation or mercy, this masked person plunged a knife deep into the girl's head with a single brutal chop. The girl died instantly right there on the spot. The scene then transitioned away from the horror, introducing us to two unsuspecting colleagues, Miraj and Fendi. They both worked for a cleaning company in Indonesia. They were driving toward a specific location where someone had recently died. They had absolutely no idea how the person died or what had truly happened, primarily because they hadn't even checked the file. Compounding the problem, Fendi had forgotten to bring the report entirely. All he could recall was the location itself. Miraj, understandably, was disappointed in Fendi's oversight, but there was no time to dwell on it, as they had already traveled too far, and turning back for the file was simply impossible now. Just when things couldn't get worse, their car suddenly broke down. They had a flat tire. Both men threw their hands up in utter frustration, wondering where they could possibly find help out in this remote area. So Miraj took charge and started changing the tire himself. Fendi sat nearby, simply chatting with him. Though they were just colleagues, they shared a genuine, strong friendship. It was during this small break that Fendi revealed a surprising personal fact. Miraj had a twin brother named Lokman. They looked exactly alike. However, Miraj and Lokman were tragically separated when they were only 2 years old. When Miraj was asked why they separated, he simply replied that it was a long, complicated story. He told Fendi that he had never seen Lokman again after those first 2 years. As they continued to talk about these personal matters, a bright red car pulled up and stopped near them. A man stepped out and asked Miraj if they were having any trouble. Miraj explained that they had a flat tire, but he assured the stranger that the change was almost complete and they had no further issues. The man warned them that the local children were quite mischievous and often threw scrap iron or similar objects onto the road, causing frequent flat tires in the area, but then he gave a far more unsettling warning. He told Miraj and Fendi to be extremely careful as the area was known to be infested with countless snakes. After delivering these cryptic and slightly odd warnings, the man simply drove away. Miraj and Fendi quickly finished changing the tire and drove the short distance to their designated location. This structure was, chillingly, the exact same dangerous, mysterious house shown at the beginning of the story. Neither Miraj nor Fendi had any clue about its sinister history. As soon as they pulled up to the house, Fendi casually remarked that he thought an elderly person had probably died inside. He speculated that perhaps the person's children lived abroad, leading to no one being around to care for the deceased, which is why they were called in to perform the cleaning. Miraj, however, sensed something far more unsettling. He admitted he was having a strange feeling of déjà vu. He even claimed to momentarily see the girl who was shown at the beginning of the story. Fendi dismissed this, joking that it was probably just his twin brother causing the strange feeling. Ignoring Fendi's wild theories, Miraj got out of the car. As Miraj headed toward the car to grab their equipment, he saw a young girl in a pink dress standing a distance away. She was staring at him in a very strange, intense way, but when he looked a second time, she had vanished without a trace. Miraj was left feeling completely bewildered. The two men suited up and prepared to work. They were immediately puzzled, though. A person had clearly died inside, and the gruesome aftermath hadn't yet been cleaned up. Yet there was no forensic tape sealing the doors. Furthermore, the front door wasn't locked at all. They simply opened it and walked inside. Upon entering, they were immediately assaulted by a terrible, foul odor. Their first task was to check if the electricity was working. But the entire house was dark. There was no power anywhere. They went downstairs, searching for the fuse box in the hopes of turning the lights back on. Unfortunately, they had no luck finding it. Miraj quickly decided he wouldn't waste precious time trying to fix the power. Instead, he announced they would check every room to assess the cleaning needs and then work quickly to get out. To speed up the process, Miraj told Fendi to check the upstairs rooms while he handled the downstairs. Miraj went into the first room, which was the source of a particularly nasty, acrid stench. He was stunned by what he saw inside. Lying on the carpet was a large, distinct, human-shaped bloodstain, and crawling all over this dry, dark blood were countless, swarming insects. Miraj quickly took a photo of the gruesome scene. He heard a sudden noise from behind him and followed it, which led him to another small room that looked like a tiny, rudimentary kitchenette. It was there he noticed a switchboard and began trying to fix the fuse. Meanwhile, Fendi was checking the upstairs rooms, looking for cleaning spots. He was carrying a small camera as he moved from room to room. In one room, he too was horrified by a gruesome sight. He immediately rushed back to Miraj to call him. He excitedly told Miraj that they had found a sight upstairs, a room where someone had definitely met a violent end. Miraj was shocked. He had just found a similar spot downstairs. Could this mean there had been two separate deaths in this single house? Fendi began regretting bitterly that he forgot to bring the official report. They hadn't even read the basic details. Going upstairs only intensified Fendi's regret and fear. The blood they saw up there looked terrifyingly fresh, yet there were already countless insects covering it. It certainly didn't look like someone who had died of old age, nor did it look like a clear suicide. The sheer volume of blood splattered across the walls screamed murder. Miraj admitted to Fendi that he had never encountered a case like this before. Fendi believed the blood couldn't be more than 2 or 3 days old. Miraj countered that if it were that recent, there shouldn't be so many insects, yet the blood itself appeared completely fresh. Miraj urged Fendi to stop overthinking and start working quickly. Fendi insisted they should double-check the other rooms upstairs. Miraj agreed and sent him off while he tried calling the office for the report. But horrifyingly, there was absolutely no network signal inside the house. If you're finding this chilling tale compelling, please hit that like button right now and subscribe so you do not miss our deep dive into the next chapter. As Fendi checked the remaining rooms, he noticed a door that was firmly shut. He tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a strange, muffled noise coming from inside the room. Driven by morbid curiosity, he peered through the keyhole. He saw something inside, but it abruptly moved away from the door. Fendi was immediately spooked. Then the door swung open by itself right in front of him. The sight of the contents inside left Fendi utterly stunned. Downstairs, Miraj heard a noise coming from beneath the bed in the room he was in. He checked, only to find a small rat nibbling on something. To figure out what the rat was eating, Miraj reached down and picked the object up. At that exact critical moment, someone was standing right behind him. The presence vanished the very next moment. Miraj looked at the object in his hand. It was a human finger, but as soon as he dropped the gruesome finding, the finger disappeared completely from the floor. Miraj couldn't process any of this. Suddenly, Fendi called out to him. The door that had opened for Fendi was actually a washroom door. Inside, they found more pools of blood, along with a thick, ominous hanging noose. They realized that this was indeed a major murder case involving 3 separate deaths in 3 different rooms. Fendi speculated that the person who ended their own life here, the suicide in the washroom, might have been the one who murdered the other 2 victims. They were both baffled as to why their office hadn't informed them they were handling such a massive case. If they had known the severity, they certainly would have brought more people. More disturbingly, if this was truly a murder case, where were the forensic teams? Where was the official crime scene tape sealing the doors? They had no idea what to do next. However, there was absolutely no time to figure things out. Evening was descending, and deep darkness was setting in. They knew they needed to clean the 3 spots quickly and get out of the house immediately. They hurriedly brought all their cleaning supplies, including a portable generator, inside. They began working at full speed. Elsewhere, we were introduced to an old woman named Layla, a little girl named Aisha, the same girl Miraj had seen earlier in the pink dress, approached Layla. Layla was Aisha's grandmother. Aisha informed her grandmother, with wide eyes, the 2 men had entered the notorious Tokmakh House. Layla was visibly and immediately alarmed by this news. She quickly instructed Aisha to come inside and immediately bolted the door, sealing them in. Back in the house, it was fully dark. Miraj and Fendi were working together. Suddenly, Miraj heard something heavy fall from one of the upstairs rooms. He called out to Fendi, asking if he had heard the noise. Fendi was listening to music on his earphones while cleaning and hadn't heard a thing. He joked with Miraj about the house being haunted. Miraj was certain he had heard a noise from upstairs, so he went up alone to investigate. As he checked the rooms, we saw a spectral figure walk past right behind him. Miraj definitely sensed the chilling presence. The scene then shifted to the home of a man named Ishak. He was finishing his prayers and reciting the Quran. His phone kept ringing repeatedly. Someone was calling him in extreme distress. Because the phone was on silent, he didn't realize the severity of the calls. Back at the house, Fendi wanted to take a short rest, but Miraj was desperate to finish the work and leave quickly, as he had a powerful, persistent bad feeling. After a very brief rest, they returned to work. Miraj was cleaning downstairs, while Fendi headed back upstairs. As Fendi worked, his foot snagged on the thick carpet. He saw a sign clearly etched underneath. He moved the carpet completely aside and saw a dark, carefully drawn pentagon symbol. As enthusiasts of horror lore know, this symbol signifies the ceremonial worship of the devil. Suddenly, a metallic sound came from inside a nearby wardrobe. Fendi, driven by overwhelming morbid curiosity, went to investigate what was making the noise. Inside, he found countless objects related to black magic. Every single item pointed toward the Dajjal form of Satan. Fendi was initially stunned, but his curiosity overcame his fear. This foolish curiosity got the better of him. He pulled out a box without a second thought and started opening it. Inside, he found red candles and more black magic paraphernalia. After removing everything, he found a heavily wrapped book encased in red plastic at the very bottom. Fendi, still oblivious to the danger, pulled out the red book and eagerly ripped off the plastic. The book clearly looked like a dark ritual text for black magic. As he pulled it out, Fendi accidentally cut his hand and a single drop of blood fell onto the chilling skull image drawn on the book's cover. Still, he paid no attention to this alarming ritualistic event. He opened the book and started reading about various Jinn species. He then read aloud the name of a demon, Baljibak. Yeah. This name refers to Jinn, who are followers of Satan. The instant he uttered the name, the lights in the room went completely dark. A violent wind began to blow, and the door opened spontaneously. Miraj sensed that something catastrophic was unfolding downstairs. He rushed upstairs to check on Fendi. Fendi, startled by the noise, had already stepped out of the room. They were both confused by the strange sounds and the sudden change in atmosphere. They wondered aloud if someone else had entered the house. They went downstairs to check the main door. They discovered it was wide open. Miraj felt certain that something was deeply wrong. He had felt a bad premonition from the start and had heard strange noises several times. Fendi, terrified by Miraj's declaration, quickly shut the main door. They started heading back upstairs, desperate to clean quickly and escape the house. Just then, they heard horrifying noises coming from the very first room they had cleaned downstairs, the murder site. They rushed back to the room and were completely shocked. The furniture, along with the bloodstains they had tirelessly scrubbed away, had reappeared, looking wet and fresh. Everything they had cleaned had been horrifyingly reversed. Fendi was beside himself with fear. Miraj, realizing the gravity of their situation, insisted they had to get out immediately. They decided they would quickly grab their bags from upstairs and flee. Fendi asked about the generator and other equipment. Miraj simply said they would come back for it in the morning. When they reached the upper rooms, they were horrified again. In the room where Miraj's bag was located, everything had reverted to its original bloody state. The blood was back on the floor, complete with the crawling insects. They were even more terrified now. They rushed to get Fendi's bag, which was in the room where he had found the forbidden book. Miraj hadn't seen this room before. He was stunned to see the pentagon symbol painted on the floor. He also noticed the book lying there. Fendi sheepishly explained that he had found the room while cleaning, prompted by the noise coming from the wardrobe. Miraj recognized the pentagon symbol instantly, identifying it as a sign used for devil worship. Fendi pointed out the red candles and the devil worship statues as further evidence of dark rituals. He then indicated the red plastic-wrapped book. Miraj anxiously asked if Fendi had read it. Fendi, trembling with rising panic, lied and said he hadn't read anything at all. Miraj urged him to hurry. They had to leave the house immediately. They ran to the main door. The instant they touched the handle, their hands were scalded. It wasn't just the main door. They couldn't touch the window locks either. They felt the searing, unbearable pain of being burned by fire. Miraj realized, with chilling certainty, that Fendi must have read the book. Fendi finally broke down and admitted the truth. He had read one single forbidden word. Miraj instantly understood that Fendi had unknowingly summoned a powerful evil Jinn. He scolded Fendi relentlessly. Why would he read a book that was wrapped in red plastic, sealed away in a box and bound with cord? Furthermore, why didn't Fendi say anything to Miraj when he found the ritual items and the open door? If he had spoken up then, they could have escaped before closing the door and sealing themselves in danger. Miraj forced himself to compose his panic and asked Fendi which word he had read. After hearing the name, Miraj asked Fendi if he knew about the Sigil of Baphomet. This was a sinister group that practiced black magic. They didn't just worship Satan. They were actively trying to bring him to earth in the form of Dajjal, the Antichrist. Foolish Fendi, however, had yet another terrible, desperate idea. He suggested that perhaps if they followed the book's instructions exactly and completed the full ritual, everything would simply return to normal. Maybe completing the ritual would free them from the house, or perhaps the Jinn he mistakenly summoned would simply return from whence it came. Miraj absolutely refused to entertain the idea, but they were completely and unequivocally trapped. They had no other recourse but to try. Fendi was convinced this was the only way they would ever leave the house. If this unfolding nightmare is gripping you, let us know in the comments below. What would you do if you were trapped inside a house of ritual sacrifice? Your input matters. At that very moment, the scene cut back to Ishak's house. We learned that Ishak was the local imam of the village. Layla, Aisha's grandmother, arrived. She was the one who had been urgently calling Ishak ever since Aisha told her about the two men entering the haunted house. Hearing the danger in Layla's voice, Ustad Ishak immediately prepared himself and left for the house. Meanwhile, the situation inside the cursed house was rapidly deteriorating. Miraj finally, reluctantly, agreed to Fendi's bizarre plan. The two men began the ritual. Fendi sat inside the carved circle. He lit the red candles exactly as the book instructed. Miraj stood outside the circle, reciting the rules from the dark ritual book. The book promised that upon completion of the ritual, they would be free. It didn't specify what they would be free from, but Fendi hoped desperately for freedom from the house. Following the sinister rules, Fendi first cut his hand and drew blood. He used a single drop of his blood to open the book. He then began to utter the 4 forbidden, hateful names of Satan, the ones prohibited in Islam. As he recited these names, one by one, the evil, shadowy forces began visibly entering the house. Suddenly, Fendi saw the girl from the story's opening scene. She was bloody and attempting to escape through the doorway. Miraj, however, didn't see her. Fendi continued, reciting the 4th and final name. He then spun the bowl, as required. While the bowl was spinning, Miraj saw a woman dressed completely in red. She was carrying a knife and advancing straight toward Miraj, intent on attacking him. Before the woman could strike, the ritual ended as the bowl stopped spinning. Both Miraj and Fendi immediately fell unconscious. All the surrounding candles went out. After a while, they both regained consciousness. Miraj frantically looked for the woman who had tried to attack him. Fendi claimed they had simply passed out when the ritual ended. They were both freezing, feeling a profound, unnatural cold. Just then, someone called Miraj's name. Miraj was confused. Who else could possibly be in this house? Fendi suggested maybe someone came looking for them. Miraj questioned how the person knew his name. Fendi theorized that perhaps their boss had arrived. Hopeful, they slowly left the room. Since they were downstairs, Fendi suggested they check the main door to see if they could finally exit. They hesitated, still afraid to touch the handle, but to their immense relief, the handle was no longer burning hot. Excited, they threw the door open. But when they looked outside, they were utterly stunned and aghast. The outside world was gone. They had entered a completely alternate world. Stepping out of the door led immediately into a terrifying, dark jungle. Horrified, they immediately slammed the door shut. They ran back to the room where Miraj's bag was. They were even more shocked. A fresh corpse was lying on the floor, perfectly matching the human-shaped bloodstain they had just cleaned. Through the ritual, they hadn't fixed anything. They had only made things catastrophically worse, summoning the dead back to life. They checked the upper room and found the girl from the story as opening scene. Her body now lay exactly where that bloodstain had been. Miraj bolted, running to the washroom where the noose was hanging. When they looked inside, a body was hanging from the rope, its head covered with a bag. Before they could react, the washroom door slammed shut right in front of them. Terrified, they watched as it suddenly opened again and the hanging body had vanished. Fendi panicked and ran, dragging Miraj with him. They rushed downstairs. Miraj was absolutely furious at Fendi, blaming him entirely for their horrific predicament. Fendi, still foolishly trying to rationalize, suggested maybe all of this was just their imagination, that they were still trapped inside a regular room. Miraj snapped. He punched Fendi hard and screamed that they were not imagining things. They were truly trapped in this nightmarish dimension. Once Miraj calmed down slightly, Fendi apologized, assuring him he meant well and never intended for the situation to get this bad. Then they heard a noise coming from the room where the first corpse had reappeared. Fendi pointed out that corpses don't move on their own. Cautiously, they went to check the room. The body was gone. They were confused about where the body went. Fendi still thought someone else was in the house. Miraj finally declared the terrifying truth. No, they had entered another dimension. The book had spoken of doors opening, meaning the ritual had opened a portal to the world of the Jinn. Just then, Miraj looked out the window and saw the corpse walking around outside, the knife still stuck in its head. The body that had been lying on the floor moments ago was now animate. Panicked, they rushed toward the main door to escape. Suddenly, the masked man from the beginning of the story, the terrifying killer, attacked them. Miraj and Fendi were separated, trying to flee the masked attacker. Fendi fled and hid in the washroom where the body had been hanging. Miraj ran and hid in the kitchen. He grabbed a glass bottle, smashed it, and held a deadly shard of glass as a makeshift weapon. Fendi, having hidden in one washroom, saw the body hanging in the other and quickly moved to a third washroom to hide. A bloody foot appeared near the door. It was the girl's corpse, slowly advancing toward Fendi. She tried to open the locked door. When the lock held, she started viciously slamming her head against the door. Fendi was utterly terrified. The banging suddenly stopped. Fendi bravely pulled back the curtain, covering his hiding spot. The bloody girl was standing right in front of him. She lunged at Fendi, blood poured out of her mouth and onto Fendi. Fendi screamed in sheer terror. The girl abruptly vanished. Fendi quickly got up and started running. He suddenly stopped, freezing as if he had encountered something horrific ahead. The scene cut back to Miraj. After a long period of hiding, he hadn't seen anyone. He gathered his courage and approached the door. The masked man immediately attacked him. The attacker grabbed Miraj's throat and first knocked the glass shard out of his hand. Then the masked man used his knife to stab Miraj in the arm. Miraj managed to pull the knife out of his arm and used it to stab the attacker. He then fled the kitchen and ran upstairs. Upstairs, Miraj briefly saw Fendi walking past him. He chased after him, ending up in a room. He saw someone standing silently under a large sheet. Miraj kept shouting at Fendi, telling him this wasn't the time for games. He ripped the sheet away and fell backward in horror. There was no one there. As he frantically tried to leave the room, he stopped dead. Standing right in front of him was the walking corpse with the knife sticking out of its head. Piece by piece, all the bodies in the house were coming back to horrifying, unnatural life. Suddenly, Fendi grabbed Miraj and clamped a hand over his mouth, pulling him violently into a room. Miraj, seeing the blood covering Fendi, asked what had happened. Fendi explained everything, and Miraj reciprocated. Miraj realized they couldn't survive much longer. They had to get back to the real world. Since the ritual book was the cause of their entrapment, they needed to find it and burn it to ashes. Fendi had a lighter, so they took it and slowly headed toward the room where the ritual had taken place, which was the room with the attached washroom. They were terrified of entering the ritual room, worried that the washroom corpse might appear, but they pushed forward with grim determination. Miraj picked up the book and took the lighter from Fendi, attempting to set the book on fire. But the lighter, which had been working perfectly moments ago, now failed to ignite. Miraj announced they needed to go to the kitchen to light it. Before they could exit, the door slammed shut on its own. Then the corpse from the washroom floated menacingly toward them. It turned its head toward Miraj and called his name in a chilling voice. Both men were paralyzed with fear, but the entity vanished. Scared, they opened the door and started down the stairs toward the kitchen. Suddenly, they saw the girl's corpse staring up at them from below. They panicked and ran the opposite direction. Miraj and Fendi were separated again. Miraj, still holding the book, stumbled into a room, colliding with someone and falling down. He assumed it was Fendi based on the clothing. When he flipped the body over, he was horrified to realize it was Fendi's real corpse. Miraj was stunned. If Fendi was dead and lying there, who had he been talking to all this time? The story flashed back to when they first separated. When Fendi was running from the washroom and suddenly froze, he had been confronted by the corpse with the knife in its head. As he backed away in terror, the girl's corpse appeared behind him and stabbed Fendi directly in the chest with a knife. Fendi had died right there. Suddenly, Miraj heard Fendi's maniacal laughter coming from outside the room. He went out and was horrified. Inside lay Fendi's dead body, yet Fendi himself was standing outside, staring at Miraj with a horrific, wide grin. The imposter, radiating malice, claimed to be Fendi. Miraj knew instantly this wasn't his friend. He started savagely beating the imposter repeatedly. At one point, he violently bent the imposter's head backward, snapping its neck. But right in front of Miraj, The head unnervingly snapped back into place. The creature, now with terrifying, glowing red eyes, continued to laugh. Miraj ran for his life. With the demonic Fendi in relentless pursuit, he managed to slide into a room and bolt the door shut. After a few agonizing moments, the constant pounding on the door stopped. Miraj breathed a sigh of momentary relief, but then the door swung open on its own, and the walking corpse with the knife in its head entered. This was the same corpse Miraj had seen in the mirror, though it sometimes manifested invisible to the naked eye. The corpse stood next to Miraj. Before it could attack, Miraj punched it hard, knocking the body to the floor. Miraj realized these corpses were acting like primitive zombies. He immediately grabbed the knife axe, the blade, from the corpse's head. He used the blade to violently hack the corpse until it was completely still and lifeless. He opened the door and walked out. The horrific Fendi imposter lunged at him. Miraj immediately plunged the axe blade into the imposter's head. The creature collapsed. Miraj was finally free from the frightening mimicry of Fendi. He then went to the spot where the real Fendi and the book lay. He picked up the book and prayed desperately for Fendi's soul. Miraj headed toward the kitchen again, intending to burn the book. But as he descended the stairs, the masked man viciously attacked him, throwing him into a nearby room. In this room, Miraj saw the living, deceased girl. He was terrified and tried to open the door, but it was locked. The girl vanished from her spot. She reappeared right behind Miraj and grabbed him by the throat. Miraj managed to reach for the book. He used the book to hit the girl, knocking her down. He continued savagely beating her with the book until he crushed her head. Frustrated and driven by Fendi's traumatic death, Miraj stormed toward the kitchen again, but the gas stove wouldn't light. He screamed in helpless, raw rage. Just then, the masked man grabbed him from behind by the throat. He dragged Miraj violently into the dining room. The masked man began brutally attacking Miraj, inflicting terrible pain. He grabbed Miraj by the throat, lifted him into the air, and violently threw him across the room. He picked Miraj up again and stabbed him in the stomach. The masked demon seemed to derive immense pleasure from torturing Miraj. He raised the knife, intending to stab Miraj directly in the eye. Miraj held the arm back with all his remaining strength, screaming desperately for salvation. At that critical moment, something miraculous happened. The scene snapped back to the real world, the human dimension. Miraj was completely possessed. Ishak was performing ruqya, exorcism, and healing over him. Ishak and Layla had arrived at the house just in time to try and save Miraj and Fendi. The evil Jinn had attempted to take control of their souls in the other dimension. In Miraj's case, Ishak was able to perform the ruqya before the possession was complete. When Miraj muttered his friend's name, Ishak knew that Miraj had successfully returned to the real world. Layla, however, noted that while Miraj was stable, Fendi was not doing well. If they wanted to save him, they would have to enter that other cursed world themselves. Ishak was deeply concerned. Back in the demonic dimension, Fendi regained consciousness. Miraj had mistakenly thought Fendi was dead, but he had only been knocked out by the blow. Fendi slowly descended the stairs, searching desperately for Miraj, but Miraj had already been pulled back to the human world. As Fendi searched near the kitchen, the masked man attacked him again. He chased Fendi, knocking him down. The attacker raised his knife, preparing to kill Fendi for good. Fendi fought desperately. Then he saw Layla standing to the side. She gestured frantically, telling him to move quickly toward her. This was the path out of the demonic world. Layla was immediately joined by Ishak. Ishak immediately began reciting the powerful Ayatul Kursi throne verse. As soon as the verse was read, the demonic mask worn by the Jinn burst into flames. Smoke billowed, and the masked man writhed in intense pain. Fendi seized the opportunity and fled toward Ishak and Layla. They successfully pulled him back to the real world. This is how Fendi and Miraj were saved by the Imam and Layla. The next day, Miraj awoke in Layla's house. Aisha saw him sit up and ran to inform Layla. Miraj slowly left the room. He saw Layla and Aisha, but his first thought was Fendi. Layla gestured toward Fendi's room. Miraj opened the door and found Fendi sleeping peacefully. Relieved, Miraj sat on a sofa. Layla brought him tea and began answering the many questions Miraj had. Layla explained that reading the devil's book in that house had transported them to the world of the evil Jinn. She confessed that she had tried many times to destroy the book, but it always returned. Furthermore, the house itself was cursed, and they should never have gone there. They were not the first victims. Other people had been trapped and killed there before. Miraj and Fendi were incredibly fortunate to be saved by Layla and Ishak. Miraj then asked who actually owned the house. Layla revealed it belonged to her brother. After her brother died, the house was inherited by his nephew Adam and his wife Maisara. Layla discovered that when Adam and Maisara returned from Europe and took over the house, they were actually active followers of Satan's path. Layla had tried repeatedly to reason with them, but failed. Miraj recalled seeing a woman dressed in red clothing when he was transported to the other world. Layla confirmed this might have been Maisara. She explained that several years prior, 3 people were brutally murdered in that house. On that night, Layla saw Maisara wearing red. Since then, Maisara never wore any color but red. Layla then slid a family photo album toward Miraj. Miraj opened the album and was aghast. He instantly recognized Maisara and Adam, he told Layla, shaking, that he had met those 2 people just yesterday near the bridge when their car tire punctured. Layla instantly replied that this was impossible. Adam and Maisara had died 2 years earlier in a car accident. She asked Miraj if the car they were driving was red. Miraj confirmed it was. Layla revealed that the red car was the exact one they had crashed in. The story then revealed the truth about the encounter. When Adam shook Miraj's hand while talking to them, he was using it to hypnotize them. This caused Miraj and Fendi to forget their real destination. Instead, Adam gave them the address to his cursed house. He then pulled Fendi aside and separately instructed him to enter the house, open the forbidden book, recite the words, and perform the ritual. As he gave these dark instructions, Adam snapped his fingers, breaking the hypnosis. He then gave the final warning about the snakes in the area, a warning they would remember. Miraj and Fendi had only seen the warning about the snakes. They had completely missed the entire sinister hypnosis sequence. Adam returned to his red car where Maisara was waiting. Adam expressed his determination not to disappoint Maisara, stating that if these 2 failed, they would simply find new victims. He revealed the chilling truth. For the past 2 years, they had been operating as dead people. They hadn't truly died in the accident. They were still terrifyingly alive. The most shocking part was Maisara's eyes. They were completely red. She wasn't human. A powerful demon resided within her. Maisara looked at Miraj from a distance and said his face seemed familiar. Adam insisted the person was different, even if the face was the same. Maisara wondered if they were twins. Adam merely replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no," and they drove away. Finally, the story jumped back to the very beginning, right after the masked man murdered the girl. Adam and Maisara arrived. With a simple, commanding gesture from Maisara, the masked man instantly knelt before her and bowed his head. This confirmed that Maisara harbored the supreme demon. Maisara ordered him to remove the mask and asked his name. The man revealed his name was Lokman. He was Miraj's twin brother, looking exactly like him. Adam then approached Lokman and put a bag over his head. He ordered Lokman to go to the washroom and end his own life. The hanging body found in the washroom was, devastatingly, Lokman. This explained why Miraj had such intense déjà vu when he arrived. His twin brother had already endured and succumbed to the exact horror Miraj was about to face. Adam then put on the discarded mask. He turned on music and began dancing macabrely with Maisara, and that is how Miraj G.'s twin brother became the very first victim in a nightmare designed for them both. The story ends right there,